During the 1930s, much of the world's attention was riveted on the Scottsboro Boys, 9 black youths falsely charged with raping 2 white women in Alabama. This case, more than any other event in the South during the 1930s, revealed the barbarous treatment of blacks. The case began on March 25, 1931, when a number of white and black youths were riding on a freight train traveling to see if they could find work. A fight broke out between a group of black and white hobos, and the whites were thrown off the train. They reported the incident to a station master, who wired ahead for officials to stop the train at a town called Paint Rock. Dozens of armed men rounded up 9 black youths and took them to jail. They were about to be charged with assault when 2 white women, dressed in boys' clothing, were discovered hiding on the train. Although there was no evidence connecting the youth to the women, the 9 youths were charged with raping the women. The women, who had had sexual relations with some of the white men thrown off the train, and fearing prosecution for the sexual activity with the white men, agreed to testify against the black youths. The trials was held in the town of Scottsboro, Alabama. The all-white jury convicted the 9, and all but the youngest, who was 12 years old, were sentenced to death. 2 women, fearful of being prosecuted for their sexual activity aboard the train, agreed to testify that 9 black youths had raped them. The announcement of the verdict and sentences brought a roar of protest in the North. The Communist Party took charge of the case and carried out a twofold battle, in the courts and on the streets. In 1932, the Supreme Court overturned the conviction, Powell v. Alabama, on the grounds that the defendants had not received adequate legal counsel in the capital case. The state of Alabama then retried one of the accused, Hayward Patterson, and once again convicted him. But the trial judge, James Horton, set aside the verdict on the ground that he did not believe the defendant committed the crime. That decision caused him to be defeated in the next election. The state then retried Clarence Norris to see if the Supreme Court would again intervene. Norris was sentenced to death, but in 1935, the U.S. Supreme Court, Norris v. Alabama, overturned this conviction, ruling that the state had excluded blacks from juries. Alabama again tried to convict Hayward Patterson, this time sentencing him to 75 years in prison. Further trials of the rest of the defendants resulted in more reconvictions and appeals until, after persistent pressure from both northern and southern groups, Alabama freed the 4 youngest defendants, who had already served 6 years in jails, and later paroled all but Patterson. Patterson escaped in 1948 and fled to Michigan, where 3 years later he was convicted of manslaughter and died in prison. The last known surviving members of the group, Clarence Norris, fled to the North after his parole in 1946 and was granted a full pardon by the governor of Alabama in 1976.